Hello, my name is Avery Cash and I am the environmental educator with the Manitoba chapter of CPAWS. Today we're going to be exploring how we can identify some common trees that are found in Manitoba. Trees are crucial to healthy ecosystems across Manitoba and the world. Not only are they vibrantly alive and beautiful, but they also purify the air we breathe, they give us food, and are habitats for many creatures. The trees take care of us, so let's take care of the trees. Manitoba has 24 native tree species. We have both deciduous and conifer trees. As you walk through the forest in autumn, you'll likely notice the leaves that are changing color into these beautiful shades of yellows and oranges and reds. These are deciduous trees. They generally grow their leaves in the spring and lose them in the fall. They do this to conserve water and energy during those cold winter months. Let's talk about coniferous trees. So as a general rule, conifer trees grow needles instead of leaves, and they do not change color in the winter. They're often a deep green color. And some trees don't fall neatly into either category. The tamarack tree has needles but loses them in the fall. So let's first explore coniferous trees. So at first glance, many conifers look similar, but upon closer inspection, we see that there are several different species. In Manitoba, we have spruce, we have pines, we have firs, and we have cedars. So here's a little tip to quickly tell which type of coniferous tree you're looking at just by looking at the needles. So if the needles are square or four-sided, you've got a spruce tree. So in Manitoba, we have black and white spruce. If the needles are flat, you're looking at a fir, and in Manitoba, we have the balsam firs. If the needles are in groups of 2 or more, we're looking at a pine tree. A way to remember that is square is a spruce tree, flat needles is a fir tree, and pairs are for pine trees. So here we have a white spruce. These are often called Black Hills spruce. And the white spruce is the provincial tree of Manitoba, found widespread across the boreal forest. It's capable of surviving almost every environment across Manitoba, so talk about a strong and resilient tree. To identify the white spruce, we can see that the white spruce is quite dense, and the shape of the tree moves towards a pyramid shape or a triangle towards the top. We can also notice that the lower branches often turn slightly upwards. Let's take a look at the needles. We notice the needles are four-sided or square-shaped, which tells us right away that this is a spruce tree. We can also see that the needles project from all sides of the branches, and the needles are pointed and stiff. When the white spruce needles are crushed, they give off a beautiful aromatic scent. I'm going to talk about the twigs and the cones. So the twigs are rough and the leaf bases are arranged in a spiral. The cones are a pale reddish-brown color and they're usually around 3.5 centimeters long or so, and this is how the spruce tree reproduces. Let's talk about deciduous trees. So deciduous trees shed their leaves in the fall. Manitoba has 16 species of deciduous trees, so let's take a look at some of them. So we're going to take a look at a white birch tree. To identify a birch tree, a characteristic we can look for right away is the bark. So mature trees have a distinctive white trunk with reddish-brown branches, and we can notice that the bark peels away in papery strips or layers. Young trees have smooth bark, but as the tree gets older, we can notice brown horizontal lines or ridges starting to show up on the tree. If we take a look at the leaves, a birch tree has a simple leaf, meaning that the leaf stem is directly attached to the twig. The leaf is shaped like a diamond or triangular shaped and has a sharp point on the end. And we can also notice that the leaves are sharply double-toothed along the edges of the tree.
Another fascinating thing about birch trees is its bark was used by Indigenous people for items that we use on a daily basis, such as this birch bark canoe, or earrings, or baskets. Because of its malleable nature, you can peel it apart like paper, and it can be formed into many different things. So another thing that we did with that paper-like substance is we would fold it in half and bite into it and make different patterns, and it was a beautiful art form called birch bark biting. And then finally, if you're ever lost in nature and you need to start a fire, birch bark makes an amazing fire starter. So all you gotta do is go find a strip of birch bark from a tree and it will light right up. One thing to remember is the honorable harvest. You never wanna take a strip from the full circle of the trunk of the tree, only take what you need and always leave more to grow.
So we're going to talk about the elm tree, or the American elm. So Winnipeg is home to North America's largest urban elm population. So these are often those large, beautiful trees that line the streets of Winnipeg. You may have heard of Dutch elm disease, which is a fungus that was brought overseas to North America in the early 1900s from infected elm wood. So this fungus was detected in Winnipeg in 1975, and this fungus spreads between elm trees via the native elm bark beetle that feeds in the crown of the elms. So this fungus actually blocks water movement in elm trees. One of the best things we can do to prevent Dutch elm disease is to take care of our elms and make sure that they're happy and healthy. So let's take a look at how we can identify an elm tree. So elm trees are typically large, they're 20 to 25 meters tall, and they have an enormous diameter. And we can notice the shape of the tree. It almost looks like a vase or an umbrella shape. And the bark of the tree is a darker grayish brown and quite rough, so we can notice the ruts or grooves as the tree ages. If we take a look at the leaves, elm leaves are a little bit more narrow, and they're often oval shaped, and they alternate on the branches. We can notice the sharp point towards the end of the leaf and the coarse double-toothed edges. The leaf veins are also very prominent in elm leaves, and they give the leaf shape, and they also help to move materials and nutrients around. So we're going to take a look at trembling aspen, or also called white poplar. The trembling aspen is a deciduous tree that usually grows around 12 to 20 meters tall, but sometimes can grow up to 30 meters tall. It's named a trembling aspen because of the way that the leaves flutter in the breeze, making it look like it's shaking or trembling. So if we want to identify an aspen tree, we are going to be looking at a little baby one today. So we can notice the smooth grayish white colored bark. As we move towards the base of the tree, the bark begins to get a little bit darker in color and a little bit more rough. We can also notice the bark darker in color around the branches. So let's take a moment to notice the leaves on this aspen tree. We can see that the leaves alternate on the branches, and the leaves have rounded bases and then a point towards the end. We can also notice that the leaves are as close to the same length as they are wide. There are rounded teeth around the edges of the leaf, and the tops of the leaves are shiny and green in color and then a little bit paler underneath. So we're going to take a look at cottonwood trees. So cottonwood trees are large deciduous trees that appear in southern Manitoba, often along riverbanks. In early summer, the fruit of the cottonwood tree splits open and white fluff is released everywhere. Beavers also enjoy cottonwood trees for both food and for building their dams. So to identify a cottonwood tree, we often will see a large crown with spreading branches, and in wide open spaces, that crown can be as wide as the height of the tree. These ones that we're looking at right now, although they look enormous, are still quite young baby trees. So we can imagine how large these ones are going to get. Oftentimes with cottonwood trees, the trunk will divide near the base of the tree, and then branches tend to be really thick and long. Younger trees have a grayish green and thin and smoother bark, but as the tree ages, the bark becomes more gray in color, and it's quite thick and rough with large and deep ridges. Let's take a look at the cottonwood leaves. The cottonwood leaves have a really unique shape. They're almost heart-shaped. The leaf rounds out almost like a triangle and comes to a sharp point at the end, and the edges of the leaf have coarsely rounded teeth. They alternate on the branch, and we can also see that the stalk is flattened near the base of the leaf.
So something that's magical about the cottonwood is that if you take any branch or any offshoot of the tree and you cut it open, in the center of each branch is a dark star. And a really cool belief in many Indigenous cultures is that that star connects us to the universe. And so it's really quite a magical tree, and we have it everywhere in Winnipeg.
So the next time that you're out, take a moment to notice the trees around you. Notice the shape of the trees. What does the bark look like? What is the shape of the leaves? What is the shape of the needles? How does the tree make you feel to be in that space with it? What can we learn from this tree?
Take the opportunity to go and sit by a tree or even hug a tree. Let that energy feed you, and that tree will nurture you and comfort you. Think of a tree as an auntie or an uncle or a grandma or grandpa. Take the time to look after our relatives, the standing tall people. If we taught all the kids how to go out and plant one tree, we'd have a much better world.